Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we also have
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock. Happy New Year to everyone.
Sorry, say that again. I cut you off.
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock. Happy New Year to everybody.
So today, since we have so much news at the MCU, that we have TV shows happening, we just saw a glimpse of the Fantastic Four logo animated, as if we'd never seen that before. What's going on with the mutants? What's going on with the X-Men? Do you have any ideas on what they're going to do with the X-Men, Cal?
No, I don't. X-Men is your area.
So ultimately, in many of my arguments with friends, it's like saying, how would they bring the X-Men in the universe? Why weren't they in the Avengers in Infinity War at the end? As if they needed more characters at the end of that movie.
People were asking for the X-Men to be in that movie?
Or to do the thing of being the cynical fan that asks the question, why don't people see Spider-Man's face when you see the lines on the side of his face? Why didn't this happen? Why weren't the Avengers when Galactus came? Like those sort of questions.
Good grief.
They were just somewhere else.
I'm trying to think on that as well. Like, if you threw, how many characters did you already have in that final battle scene in Endgame, and you wanted the X-Men on top of it for what? Yes. So it could just become unwieldy? It was bad enough when they did that all chick scene, let alone throw the X-Men in there.
So, I mean, I'm not sure if in your mind, I think we talked about it before, about your interest in possibly seeing the original X-Men, which would also be my interest of them starting from scratch. And I guess obviously hinting at Wolverine being somewhere I mean, because I don't want to necessarily get rid of the original X-Men. I would love to see them just do a story. I don't need to see where these guys were and have them come from a pocket dimension or something like that. Just, hey, Xavier's training them, and they have a big bad, and Magneto makes his first appearance in the Marvel Universe, and the X-Men are the first ones on the scene. You know, it's that simple. You don't, if you're sitting around explaining why there's not another team up when the Magneto comes, then you're not playing along. You can't share everything in the universe. But ultimately,
well, they keep wanting to have this, well, we have a shared universe, so it all needs to make sense. So where are the X-Men? The X-Men don't have to arrive.
Yeah.
It's not like the X-Men always had to be there. The X-Men can actually be new. It could be something new that props up. Like that whole thing with Captain Marvel, that was new. I didn't know she was there before anybody else. Did I like it? No. But that was the situation. It's like, oh no, Captain Marvel, she was on the scene before all the other Avengers, and she's actually the first Avenger, which almost made me get up and light the screen. But hey, the X-Men can be all new, because they would still have to explain, for me, because pretty much they couldn't do the X-Men or any mutant related characters, but they were able to sneak in Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, because they were like, no, these are like Avengers characters, so we can keep these over here, except for Quicksilver, who I think the deal was they could use him, but they had to kill him off at the same time, because he was already over there in the Fox universe.
I never got why he had to die.
Yeah, so these guys, because it didn't make a lot of sense why he died, or even the sacrifice that he made. He was like, okay, he took the bullets instead of moving the guy out. I was like, Quicksilver should be fast enough where he would be able to do such. So it would explain for me, okay, well, what about Wanda? She's still around. Is it possible we could actually bring Quicksilver back? I actually like that Quicksilver, but I like both of them. So then there was that. Then is Wanda still going to be, Magneto's daughter? So, it creates those type of questions for me as a fan. But as of, how do they get there? Look, they can say whatever they want. They were trapped in time like the JSA fighting the devil. It doesn't matter. We'll get them. We'll get them at the end of the day. But what do you think? The hardest part for me when I'm thinking about is I'm not a very big X-Men fan. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I don't particularly care for mutants at all. I find those guys just to be irritating. We've already discussed this off camera. I just, the whole foundation of the mutants and the reaction to them, I just never bought it. Not in a world where you have superpowered superheroes running around. I just never bought it. However, the thing that really keeps me from like, well, what are they going to do with them? Almost every major mutant storyline that you would want to see, they already did at Fox. I mean,
Well,
they did, and I mean, Days of Future Past, they did that very well. So now I'm kind of like, well, what are you guys going to do? You got like the toaster leavings at the end of the day. Do I really want to see Age of Apocalypse where these guys are Wolverine's running around with one hand? I pretty don't really want to see mutants at all. So I'm not sure what you guys do.
well, ultimately, and this isn't to counter your feeling on it. The way what was kind of lost post Stan and Jack, Roy, Neil, when Byrne was on it, because some point after that, the mutant thing it just became cool that the X-Men were outlaws. Because if you look at X-Men #1, the X-Men when they meet up with the army officials, because Magneto's going to ride, he's nothing mutant related. He's just like, yeah, I'm just taking over all this stuff, taking all your missiles, and I'm declaring that I should rule everything. That's basically it. It's not he's saying I'm Homo superior. I'm the guy, right?
Yeah,
Basically, he
classic
comes
supervillain stuff.
he comes in there. The X-Men come and say, "Hey, give us 15 minutes. We'll take this guy out." Their first meeting, hadn't even known the X-Men themselves hadn't met them. Xavier at that point didn't actually meet him yet. So then they come in, they take him out in like 14 minutes, right? And he tries to kill them a couple of times, right? In that story, and the army is happy with it. And then next thing you know, the next story, you see the X-Men out helping people in the local areas, and the girls like Angel, and like these construction workers are shaking. So at point they were superheroes. The thing that crept into their stories is what something that Stan and Jack had done separately, I think with Joe Simon, that mutants, the struggle with mutants was something that was in like the fiction of the time, that you turn around and your best friend was actually someone with powers. So it's not the X-Men themselves. That's not till like Boulder Trash starts saying, hey, they're gonna take out humans. And humans are like, what? These X-Men are bad too. But ultimately the X-Men are here. At the end of the Boulder Trash story, the X-Men are with the government and the army people. They're people, they like them. Professor Xavier isn't known to be Professor X. He's like, they said, hey, the army's like, we'll take you home. It's like, no, maybe one of these X-Men could take me home. Like that. So having some fun with it. And then later, I think when who's that? Roy Thomas and Neil Adams, they did another Larry Trask, but they did another story where the X-Men fell from favor and people were trying to take out them because they were known to be mutants, but they look at them as heroes. But the struggle they always have, and I don't think anyone, even Chris Claremont, kind of gave that up, because the original Days of Future Past, and the only person that's remembered that is the guy who does the Grand Design books, that artist who did the hip hop like docu comic and did the X-Men Grand Design, where ultimately when the X-Men fight the Hellfire Club is a public, like a New York club for socialites and people with big money, right? And Wolverine, going for payback, goes to Leland and puts him in the hospital right in front of Senator Kelly. Senator Kelly's like, these mutants are, we gotta go to Congress about this because this is a mess. And that's where the whole idea of killing him, and then of course leading to the darkest days ever, that sort of stuff. So the X-Men outside of those periods were always sort of good guys. And once Byrne left, it kind of like Chris Claremont liked the idea of them being also on the other end, but he didn't want to lose. That's why the X-Men can chill and play baseball and stuff like that, because they're basically heroes and that's their clubhouse. But we turn them into the bad guys in hiding. At some point when they're hanging with Magneto, the Avengers have to say, we got to take these guys out. But then they, obviously the X-Men is its own title, so you can't do that. So they find ways to justify Magneto being good and all that. But since we brought up all of that stuff, we can say where the X-Men were. And you know where the X-Men were? I got the answer that Kevin Feige is going to use. They're in Australia. It's one of Chris Claremont's biggest storylines, and one of his most successful storylines, money-wise, not as far as being memorable.
I mean, when they were hiding out in Australia?
Yes, that's when it was twice a month. It was the comic book was the X-Men died and they became legends. They would come in, they would save the day, and like, who was here? And who came? They were legends. That's when you play that game, that's what you get. And you get Gateway, the Aborigine, that's going to teleport the X-Men into these areas and take them out right at
I
the
like I
time.
liked Gateway. I thought Gateway was cool. He was very functional. He's like, I'm gonna get you there and I'm gonna talk it.
he's
I like that.
he's
No,
so
I don't
yeah.
for me, the whole thing with the X of the premise, I mean, I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. Guys, like, where were the X-Men in Endgame? I'm like, where were the Avengers in X-Men #1?
Yep.
Where were the Avengers?
Yep.
These are the guys who should have been there taking care of it. But the thing for me is it's that mutant question, because Magneto comes and he does make a pretty salient argument when it comes down to, hey, look, you guys need to stick, we need to stick together. Because at the end of the day, we're mutants. And no matter how many times you guys come and save the world, they're still going to come over there and they're going to try to round us up and they're trying to get rid of us. And you're right, because at some point, the whole heroism of the X-Men went out the door and these guys became like almost like the mutant idiots who were still trying to save the world and such, even though the world was going to kill them. They even did that with the most recent series with House of X and Power of X, where they said, "Look, this is like Terminator, the Terminator series, where this is what's going to happen. Eventually, we are never going to be accepted by these guys, and that's always the outcome, so on and so forth." At least that was the premise that I got introduced to in the initial issues. So that was always, I mean, because you can't really hang out with Magneto and have the Avengers like, well, what are we supposed to do? It's cool now. And then especially like you hanging out with Magneto, and just in time for issue 200, Magneto goes evil again. He's like, yeah, enough of that. Time for me to get back to brass tacks. But I mean, it's hard. How critical can you be of it when that's what they did in the film? By the time we get to him in the X-Men films, this guy's a villain. He needs to be stopped and so on and so forth. But then almost every movie after that, progressively, Magneto is this anti-hero who's misunderstood, who just wants to help his people, like General Zod, and so you make him such an empathetic character. People start agreeing with him, and before you know it, they're like, yeah, Eric was right, and so was Eric Killmonger. So that was always the problem I saw with these guys. The X-Men were, they were just too watercolored at the end of the day. They needed some sort of firmness, at least for me, in terms of their heroism. And it was more about the mutant stuff and less about the heroism at the end of the day.
Well,
The
sorry.
what storylines they're gonna do, that again is something. Well, I mean, you can always do stuff over, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things, just to say one thing about what you're saying, the only bit that I would adjust is that when Magneto sort of initially there, he has sort of no that he just is trying to take over the planet, not in the sense of helping out mutants. And then the mutants that he has, he's like, hey, you must obey me. That's his thing. Like his thing is like, oh, I'm gonna like enslave humans, but you mutants are still under my rule. Like I rule everything. We're not going into any, even though it's a brotherhood of evil mutants. he's he's the top guy, and he's ultimately allowed them to he put them in front of fire while he exits. And that's one of the things that people have forgotten when they made him into this heroic guy, which, yes, it's not as big and compelling as Doctor Doom or, you know, so like that's why people like the idea of changing his personality, say, hey, do you like him being sort of a simple, like, no, but that's just what the character is. The character is a guy who basically, oh, I'm going to get these new set of Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in Captain America. Same issue about he leaves Captain America and his new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants to die. And Captain America survives. We later find out that those mutants become Mutant Force and they were still alive, but not as far as Magneto cared. And that's the thing. He's tried to kill the X-Men a number of times. So it's like the idea that people, which, I mean, it plays well on TV. I can't fault it, but it is what you were saying before, and I think we've said it before in times. Every time you watch a movie, and you see Eric Lensher going around and being like, oh, now I have to kill somebody because the humans are so bad. And you have to get that line of way, what's the name? The fun part of the what's that thing of the get that line of not always having, because people have a hard time having normal human characters that are on the fence with mutants anymore. Anytime you see a human, it has to be someone that's going to destroy humankind and mutant kind at the same time, instead of just a woman being like, I'm weirded out by Nightcrawler. Like, what the hell is that thing? And then it's like, oh, hey, it's Cyclops. Well, that beam, that, like, just the basic, just like, that's the aspect of mutants that can be like, when you're just around them and hit this guy, sort of like the eye blast. That sort of thing can be fun. But then at the same time, you have characters like, because Senator Kelly was on the fence at first. They had a guy, Judge Chambers, and they also had the government official that was friends with Professor X. And I don't think the stories, or they had Stevie Hunter, like characters like that, or Maura McTaggart, who they ultimately turned bad and they turned her into a mutant afterwards. But you had these characters that were okay with mutants, and then it's always good to have some people that are kind of indifferent, that are like, hey, I'm okay with it, but then my daughter, Kitty Pryde, like, how do you, having that thing of someone finding out that they have this power that they can't control, and hence why Xavier's here to train them and say, hey, it's kind of destructive, but don't worry, we kind of figure it out. And I think it's a fine line, but it's like, it is one of the things we say, what would you do? You can have was it Genosha, which is, it's so crazy that they had that, was it, they had that thing that happened recently in Kenosha. I think on our show, me and Mars was talking about Genosha, and he said Kenosha. I'm like, no, it's Genosha, not Kenosha. It's spelled the same, but yeah, you could do that, which is not necessarily my favorite thing. They could do a real Sentinels thing, but that's probably in because they never had the Sentinels really be dangerous. Like, whereas I mean, I guess they had those funky looking characters that were like the Fury in Captain Britain and Alan Moore and Alan Davis's Captain Britain, but I never really registered those as real Sentinels. But I guess you could say they're Sentinels from the future. So there's stuff you can still do. In my mind, they should have ended the X-Men on this run, because they had Maura McTaggart, and they could have done, what's that thing, the Proteus, but the TV cartoon did that, and they really destroyed that storyline, because nowadays you have a hard time having a villain that's just an evil villain. You have to kind of do the thing of, oh, I don't understand my power, oh, you think I'm mean, blah, I'm gonna kill you. That sort of thing, rather than just say, hey, this guy's coming into his own, and this is why the X-Men were created, because some of the people go mad with power, and the X-Men got to stop them. And then the humans are like, hey, this on our doorstep, kill them all. Kill them all. But there's some stuff you do, but it seems like, as you were saying, some of the best stuff has been done, and it's been successful. So the pull to do more Magneto, the pull to do and for fans to do Wolverine, the Frank Miller series, the mini series, do it right. The pull of that might be too strong to do Xavier and Magneto and that stuff that we saw in, like, what was it, 8 films. Is the draw of that might be too big, and that's what I kind of fear, that we just get more of the same with a couple of different changes, or they decide
So
to give those. What was it?
hopefully they have the pull to do some of this stuff. I mean, they did a lot of this stuff well, but I would love to see Magneto just as a villain. Like, look, I got all this power. I should be in control. Like Doctor Doom. There's nothing redeemable for me about Doctor Doom. This is a guy you look at his whole origin, but he doesn't have to turn out like that. This is, for whatever reason, Doom just feels, hey, I should be in control, and that's it. That's for me the crux to this. That is the draw to this character. He is not necessarily insane. He is convinced that he is right. That's it. If you were to go, I mean, he's far too intelligent to he's far too intelligent to put this off on insanity, almost like with the Lex Luthor type thing. He has convinced himself that this is the correct course of action, and his intelligence has cemented that at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm trying to remember when was the last time you saw a film where, I mean, it's like in order to get a good villain, you have to watch something like Alien, where you don't care about those things at all. You just want them dead. They show up as soon as they show up, you're like, okay, we need to get rid of this stuff. And the aliens are so bad, you will make alliances with the predator. Who wants to kill you? Who wants to kill you? But you're still like, hey, you know what? I know you're pretty bad too, and you'll track me down and kill me later on. But for right now, we got to take care of this. And Magneto, I mean, what was that? The last film where they had him, he had a family now. He's
Oh
like with some woman. I don't know if that was his daughter or if he was the adoptive father, the surrogate father or what have you. I don't remember. But then it gets to the point you're making him too sympathetic. Like he's there and he's just trying to live his life and he just wants to be left alone. And oh, see, look what you went and did now. Oh, look what you've done. Now he's gonna be back doing all that. No, Magneto doesn't want to settle down and just cook breakfast and go on picnics. This guy's supposed to be someone who wants to take over the world to ensure the proliferation and safety of mutant kind. And if you can't write that, maybe you shouldn't use the character. So it'll be interesting though, because with the X-Men films, they quickly realized that they wanted to keep Magneto around. In Marvel, most good villains die in that first movie, with the exception of Loki. So we'll see how that goes.
So, I thank Cal for joining me on this one because I really wanted to get out that gag of X-Men in Australia. It'd be funny if they actually used that, but I guess hold on. So I'm gonna just say spin rack out and hoping for the best with new X-Men stories. All right.